Welcome to Money, Manifestation, and Business, the podcast that shows you how to use your energy, intention, and consciousness to reprogram your money mindset, unleash a new level of possibility, and create a life and business that lights you up. I'm your host, Jamie Berman, and I invite you to join me each week for a dose of inspiration, coaching, and teachings to help you rewrite your money story, create abundance on your terms, and grow your business in a way that's fully aligned for you. This is going to be so much fun. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the podcast, my friend. And I'm so excited about this episode today because we're going to dive into how to heal generational patterns around wealth, which is one of my specialties when coaching. It is something that I help so many of my clients do. It's a huge part of the work that I do in the world. And I have to say, it's become a specialty, and I have mastered the art of this because I was my own first client. This is work that I have done personally within myself in a very deep way. It has absolutely changed my life in every way. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping others do it as well, because it absolutely can be done. Just because you were born into certain circumstances or certain situations, or just because you have certain traumas that you grew up with, it does not mean you have to keep them. Not that you aren't going to always have the past that you've had, right? But there's opportunity for healing it and also opportunity for transformation through it. And you can change, right? You do not have to keep the same conditioning that your parents had, or that your caregivers, or whatever it was you grew up around, gave to you or offered to you. There is an opportunity now for choice, right? And here's what I tell a lot of my clients. I teach this oftentimes in my different challenges and master classes. One of the things to remember about our core beliefs, and with money, we have core beliefs, right? And the thing to remember about them is that majority of our core beliefs we picked up before we were even 8 years old, right? How did we pick them up? Based upon what we saw, what we experienced, right? What was around us. We basically took that in as if it were truth before we were even 8 years old. What that means is that our conscious mind wasn't even fully formed when the majority of our core beliefs were established, right? It means you didn't really have a choice then as a child. And what often happens is that we take those core beliefs and now start seeing them as truths, right? At 8 years old and beyond, we start seeing that as the truth of the world. And we just carry them on as if that's how it is. That's the truth. This is just what is. And the truth is, it's not, right? A core belief is a belief. In the center of the word belief, what is it? Lie. The word lie is in the middle of belief. And so the beautiful thing about core beliefs, or beliefs in general, is that as adults, now that our conscious mind is fully formed, we can use our higher brain, our prefrontal cortex, and start to observe and see, wait, what's down in there, right? Like, what are the beliefs that I was brought up with? What is it that I tend to think about money? What is it that I'm consistently feeling, right? We have this incredible skill called metacognition. Now, humans are the only species that has metacognition. It's the ability to think about and reflect on your own thoughts, on your own emotional state, right? It's amazing. It's our ability to separate ourselves from our thoughts, right? Because you are not your thoughts, you are not your beliefs. And the more we can practice metacognition and recognize that we are not our beliefs, the easier it is to change them and the more that we can transform. But this is a skill that you're going to have to develop and learn. And if you want to heal generational patterns or generational trauma around wealth, you're going to want to really hone in on this skill around money and around wealth and around what it is you were taught. We got to start reflecting on our own thinking around it so that we can then, once we have that reflection, once we have that awareness, we have the ability to choose on purpose. Do we want to keep this or do we want to change? Do we want to change our perspective? Do we want to change our view? And I'm going to walk you through how to do that in this episode, right? Because like I said, I was my own first client with this. And that is a huge reason why I'm so passionate about helping people learn the skill of making money, helping people heal this. Because for me, growing up, I had a mom who had some learning disabilities like me. My mom and I both actually have ADHD and dyslexia. And of course, when you have learning disabilities in school, it can be very challenging. Like I had such a hard time focusing on things that I wasn't interested in. And the majority of what was taught at school, I wasn't interested in, just like my mom, right? So she developed this idea, this belief that she was dumb, that she was stupid, that she wasn't very smart. She really had so much insecurities around that, right? She couldn't do math for the life of her. And so she developed this thinking that she wasn't smart, she was dumb, right? That carried into, I also had a similar belief growing up because I couldn't get good grades for the life of me, no matter how hard I tried. I had to work super hard just to get like B's through high school. Anyways, my mom had a similar thing. And so she never believed in herself. She never believed she was smart. She didn't believe that she could make money. She didn't believe that she could get, a high-paying job. And so her belief system, especially in the generation that she grew up in, was, well, if I want to have money and security, I better marry into that, right? So that was what I observed growing up, was a woman who didn't believe in herself and didn't have confidence, even though now, like, my mom is brilliant and I see the brilliance in her. And it's like, okay, it's not the math that makes her brilliant, right? She has different things that she's amazing at. She's super gifted. She's a gifted esthetician. She's a gifted speaker. She has the warmest, most beautiful heart in the world, and she's a brilliant person. But it's because she didn't believe that she was smart in school, so she just disregarded all of her gifts and thought, I just have to marry the right person to have safety and security, right? Now, I didn't see any of this growing up. I just experienced that that's what was happening. And I remember my mom and my biological father, they were together till I was 9 years old. And I never thought there was a lot of love there. There was a lot of fighting. They both had totally different personalities. My dad had a real scarcity mindset. My mom had a kind of a more avoidant mindset around money, and there was always fighting, right? And I just didn't experience a lot of love or connection there, which, of course, that's probably why they ended up getting divorced. But soon, literally right after, or as they were going through the divorce, my mom started dating who became my stepdad. And unfortunately, he had a really bad alcohol habit, right? He was an alcoholic. And I remember telling my mom, I do not want you to marry him, Mom. Like, he, has this alcohol problem. I don't think it's going to be good. And I remember her telling me, Jamie, do you want to live in a trailer park? It's either this or a trailer park. I remember being like, I want to live in a trailer park then, But you could see that was the idea that I saw, was that, you got to marry someone, even if it's there's some toxicity there or there's some, emotional abuse there. in order to be safe and secure. Like, this is the only way we can be safe and secure. So that's what I saw growing up. And I remember making this contract with myself when I was 11 years old. And I remember saying, I will never be that. I will never do that. I remember saying, I'm going to be really rich. I'm going to be a businesswoman. I used to say, I'm going to live in New York City with an English bulldog. I had this hilarious vision for myself, which ended up being slightly different in LA with a multi-poo and a husband. Anyways, I used to say, I'm never getting married. I'm just going to be really rich. I'm going to be a businesswoman and I'm going to make my own money. I'm going to be an independent woman, right? So I made this contract with myself because it was when I was 11 that I realized, I mean, not that I had the context for this, but I was like, oh, I'm healing this. Like, it ends here, right? There's that movie that's out right now, which there's, a lot of controversy around it, but I love the title of it. It's called It Ends With Us. And that was like what I was thinking in that moment. It ends with me. Like it ends with right here. This is not going to happen for me. I'm never going to have to rely on a husband or a man for money. I want to be an independent woman, right? And that's when I made the decision that I'm going to heal this, even though, of course, I went on a journey to be able to do that. And I didn't realize exactly what was happening when I was 11. It's just, I made that decision at that time that that's not how I wanted to be, because I saw how toxic it was to be with somebody with alcoholism and with, all my siblings, and to have to deal with that growing up. It was so hard. It was so hard. There was so much codependency that I saw, and I really wanted to break that habit. And I especially wanted to break the habit of thinking that, I can't make money as a woman, that I can't make money because I'm quote unquote not smart or not good at getting straight A's in school or not good at, these math equations, whatever it was. I did not want to believe that anymore. And that's really the journey that I went on all through my 20s, was a personal development journey of, it really was a journey for me, right? But I did ultimately, once I found coaching and learned how to heal this stuff and started working with someone to heal this stuff and, hired a coach to help me, slowly but surely, I started changing my mind. I started having a different idea than what I grew up seeing and what was taught to me. And I will tell you what, everything changed. Everything changed. It's wild. I am now the first person in my family to, or the first generation, I will say, to make more money than my husband in this moment, right? It's like, it's wild. Especially growing up in that way, where I saw this whole perspective of like, no, the man makes money, right? And it was just like this idea that the woman doesn't make money is what I saw. That was the idea that was ingrained in me. And I really challenged that to the point where now, my husband is able to go and invest in a whole new career for himself. And I'm like, I got us, right? I got us. Not that I'm attached to the breadwinner identity. I'm more than happy for him to make money, he obviously has and is, and we see it as a we. So I'm not like, I need to be the breadwinner and I need but how amazing that I was able to reprogram that part of me that thought I may have to rely on someone else in order to. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm a woman. So I reprogrammed so much in order to get to this place where I am making more money than I would have ever imagined in my entire life. If I knew even like 6 years ago that I'd be making the money that I am, doing what I love, having a business, I would have been mind blown. Of course, it was a dream of mine, but it just blows my mind that we can absolutely shift our thinking. We can shift the idea of what's possible for us, and it actually works. So I want to talk you through this process because it's not only me that I've seen this, right? I have so many clients who are the first person in their family to make the amount of money that they're making, to be the first person in their family that has a successful business, that hasn't gone under. to be the first person in their family to be, debt free, to not have any consumer debt, to be the first person in their family that is the breadwinner, right? As a woman or, whatever. There's so many different examples that I can give you where I have seen this because these people have, come in and started doing work on this, and it's a game changer. So let me walk you through how to get started. If you recognize that you are feeling kind of stuck money-wise, and you recognize that you grew up with some patterns that are potentially unhelpful, and maybe you consciously recognize that it's not helpful, but you see yourself still playing it out, and you're like, how do I get out of this? I don't want to be this person. I don't want to do this, yet it feels almost unconscious. That's how, so much of it was for me as I was working through it. It just felt like it was unconscious. I couldn't help myself. So I'll tell you how to move it from the unconscious, where you're kind of observing, gosh, I'm running into these behaviors again, or I can't make the kind of money that I want to. I feel stuck. I can't make X amount, right? First step is awareness. That is huge. And my hunch is if you're listening to this, you've already started that process. But I will say this, the more you can gain awareness, the better. And we want to do this in a very non-judgmental way where you're not judging your behavior. You're not being hard on yourself. You're not beating yourself up. Because again, we have to give context to it. Remember, you probably learned majority of this stuff, majority of these patterns before your conscious mind was even formed. It's not your fault. So we have to have love and compassion for our patterns that even if they're unwanted patterns, we have to love on that part that does that, right? And love on the pattern, not loving the pattern, but love on the part of us that does that, because that is how we transform, is through curiosity, understanding, patience of it, right? Compassion, understanding that, oh my gosh, yes, of course I have this. This is what I grew up learning. It makes sense, right? So we want to come to it from that energy, but also if you can just start being more and more aware of it. So maybe you're slightly aware, but if you can dive deeper into the awareness and start noticing, like you can even write down like awareness exercise, right? Where you start becoming aware, what are the circumstances that tend to trigger me around money? What are the things that tend to drive me into scarcity? When is it that I notice I get triggered, right? Because you'll start recognizing that it's similar patterns. I know for me, I recognize that whenever I would look at my account, I would feel so much resistance to the point where I didn't even want to look at my account. So I would avoid it. So I started looking at my little patterns and seeing, where do I feel tight? Maybe it's when you're having a conversation on a consult call with a potential client and the money objection comes up, or it's time to talk about money, or it's time to share your price, right? Get as specific as you can and start gaining awareness around the patterns and around where you get triggered. Now, why you want to do that is because the more you are aware of it, the more that you can kind of start to expect it and hold space for it. Meaning, like I said in the beginning, we want to use that metacognition, that genius within us that is able to observe our own patterns, and that genius that's able to observe our own thinking and our own beliefs and our own feelings. And the more you can get curious, you can start to ask yourself, what am I believing in that moment? Because it's not the money that's causing me to feel triggered. It's a belief. There's something that I think right in that moment that makes me feel that way. And the more that you can start becoming aware of that, you can start seeing what are some of those core beliefs that you have been holding around money. And I would recommend writing those down, right? Write those beliefs down, because you cannot change what you're not aware of, right? It's really hard to just slap a bunch of money mantras on top of a bunch of crappy unconscious beliefs, right? So what we want to do, it's kind of like cleaning out a closet, right? You're not going to bring like an organizer in and have them just, put a bunch of stuff over all the unorganized chaos. No, you got to kind of pull everything out first, look at it, observe it, say, ooh, Marie Kondo, does this bring me joy? Do I want to put it back in the closet? And if not, you throw it out, right? Same with the beliefs. We want to pull them out and actually recognize what they are, actually understand what they are, so that we can start questioning. Ooh, I see where this comes from. I get it. I understand why my brain goes there. But is this something I want to keep? And is this something I want to keep believing? Because if not, I actually can decide not to put it back into the closet, AKA into my brain, right? And oftentimes, our brain is habitual. We have neural pathways that are already grooves in our brain. So our brain can offer us things, but the more we're aware of it, we can choose not to give into it. We can choose not to believe it. We can recognize that it's happening and kind of stop it or pause it or love on that part of us that's maybe in scarcity or overwhelmed, right? So that is the key, is you want to slow down and you want to start building awareness and start diving into what are those beliefs so that you can question them and you can recognize, no wonder this is happening, right? And this is so much of the work that I do with clients. So if you are wanting support around this, we do a deep dive in this. I have an entire money mindset audit. It's a whole video in the money manifestation movement that takes you pretty deep into what your money beliefs are, what your parents, believed about money growing up, what your grandparents believed about money growing up, what you kind of took from that. And then from there, the next step is to start questioning it, right? Start questioning it, start noticing it. And that is the second step, right? Is actually from the awareness of what it is, what you want to do is hold the awareness, say, okay, this is here, I recognize it, but you have to then shift gears and say, okay, but who do I want to be? Now, y'all know I'm a big believer in creating a vision. And if you want to heal generational patterns around wealth, you have to create a vision for who you're becoming. You have to decide this is where you're going, right? And the more clear you are on that vision, the easier it's going to be, right? To cultivate that who you're becoming vision for yourself. So you can ask yourself questions like, well, what do I want to believe? If anything is optional, and a belief is simply a lie, right? Like whatever I believe, I end up creating, right? Thoughts become things. So if that's true, what would I want to believe, right? What would I want to pass down to future generations? That's a great question to ask if you have kids, right? What would I want to teach to my kids, right? That's a great question. And I don't even have kids, but I still love that question because I'm like, oh, even if I had a kid, like, what would I want to teach them? Well, that's what I need to start stepping into. I don't want to carry this old history, this old stuff. That's not serving me anymore, right? So what would I want to believe? What would I want to teach my kids or my clients or the people around me? And what would be the feelings that I'd like to have most often around money? Get clear on that. What do you want to feel when you look at your bank account? What do you want to feel when you're having a conversation with your partner about money? What do you want to feel when you're looking at the debt that's in your account? What's the feeling that's going to serve you? Because when you can start to crystallize that, you can begin practicing it, right? And that's really the third step, is once you have that vision for who you want to become, who is that next generation or version of you? What's the next pattern you're creating, right? Decide on that. And then you can practice it. And here's what I would recommend is practicing it in baby steps, right? Because sometimes I think what we tend to want to do when we're healing patterns around wealth is we try to jump from 1 to 100 too quickly, and it just doesn't work. It feels totally fake. It feels false. It just doesn't feel embodied. So what I would practice doing is taking baby steps. So I'm going to give you an example of this. One of my really unhelpful patterns around money that I had picked up growing up, that's what I saw my parents doing, was I avoided it. Like I just didn't look at it. I didn't pay attention to it. I didn't budget. I just avoided it, right? Because like I said, if I looked at my account, I felt overwhelmed, right? Because there was a story there that I didn't know what I was doing. I was totally irresponsible. Again, these were all stories that I had. So I avoided it. Well, what I started to do was I decided I want to become the person who looks at my money. I want to become the person who's responsible with money. I want to be the person actually who loves money. That was the vision that I had. And so I knew I had to stop avoiding it. But instead of saying, well, my ultimate vision is that I have a budget, that I have a financial advisor, that I'm investing in all these different things, right? Like this big, huge vision. What I decided was my first step was just to start logging into my account once a day and looking at it. Didn't have to take action, didn't have to budget, didn't have to do anything with it. Step one was just logging in and getting used to seeing the numbers and noticing what my brain did and slowing it down, coming back to myself, breathing, realizing that I was safe, that all is well, that money is in flux, it comes and goes, and that I'm safe. And so that's all I did was I practiced becoming that version of me baby step by baby step at a time. Now, once I got used to looking at that daily, and I did a 30-day practice, I remember, where I was like looking at the numbers, that's when I was like, oh, maybe the next step is doing money dates, right? So maybe I do a weekly money date where it's just an update, where I get curious, I put it all into a program, right? At the time I was using mint.com, put my cards into that, and I was just observing what was my spending like, right? Still didn't have a budget. It was just every week I'm going to log in, spend at least 5 minutes observing, right? So I didn't try to go from 1 to 100. I went from like 1 to 2 and then 1 to 2 to 3 and then 3 to 4, right? And then from there, that's when, after doing that consistently, maybe for like a month or two, where I was just logging into Mint every day or every month, then I started actually creating a budget, right? So I took it step by step until I became the person who was really responsible with my money, who was really intentional with my money, who enjoyed the process of kind of playing with the numbers, and enjoyed the process of observing it and seeing the inflows and outflows and what money does and what I could do with it. But I just started by logging into my account. So that is what I want to ask you is, what is the pattern that you want to break? And what is step one? What feels like the smallest baby step that you could take that actually feels doable? But it might even be such a baby step that your brain's like, that's not really going to make a difference. Now, that thought, it's not really going to make a difference, we want to question that. It is not true, because there is so much energy and momentum that happens from baby steps. I mean, I'm not even kidding you. In terms of manifestation, baby steps are everything. They are what will end up getting you there. Because what I think a lot of us do is we want to wait till we can take huge steps, and we don't do anything until we can take the huge steps. But really, it's the baby steps that create the energy and the momentum and show the universe that you're on board and that you're serious and that you're becoming and you're heading there. Every baby step, I like to think of it as like taking a step towards your future self. And what we want to do is we want to take such a massive leap towards our future self that we just don't do anything. And then you end up staying where you are in the same patterns and the same habits. So I want to encourage you to start small and move an inch at a time and do something that feels like the path of least resistance, that almost feels too easy, but that's moving you towards it. Because guess what? It's going to lead you to the next step, and then to the next step, and then to the next step. And before you know it, you are going to become that version of you who has healed that generational pattern. Now, the fourth thing I want to offer, right? Number one was building awareness and curiosity and starting to sort of question your beliefs. Two was creating the vision for who you want to be, for who you are becoming, and to claim it. Step three was taking baby steps there, starting to practice new ways of being, new ways of thinking that are just baby steps towards that future self. Now, the fourth one, and this is huge, and this is the one that I personally would say, in terms of my own experience and seeing this with my clients, this is the one that short circuits the timeline, the time frame that it takes you to get there, is receiving support. Because so much of this, at least I know for me, it wasn't until I hired my coach to help me sort of start seeing what was in my brain. Some of the stuff I didn't even recognize as thoughts, or I didn't know how to question it because that was the only way I'd ever seen things. And having a coach that helped guide me through that journey helped so much, right? She offered me so many different new perspectives, and I attribute so much of my current money beliefs to coaches that I've had, mentors, even books that I've read, right? But so much of it was by receiving support and really investing in myself and investing in my healing. Therapy as well has been really, really helpful. So I would say that is an investment that is worth making, especially around this area of your life, because when you invest in healing generational patterns around wealth, what do you think ends up happening? The ROI on that investment is going to be massive, right? It's one of my best investments of my entire life, right? I've had a lot of good investments, but I would say I don't think there's been anything close to the investments that I've made in my own mind, in my own healing, because that's led to so many other things. Oh yeah, and I'd love to report one more thing before we go, and that is that even though what I grew up seeing was different than the reality now, my mom has since gotten into manifestation. She actually had hired a coach at one point, and she's done a lot of belief work, and she is now killing it in her business. She is making money, and she is an independent woman. So I'm super, super proud of her. And I did ask her permission to share kind of a little bit of our background and, the journey that I grew up around, because I wouldn't want to share anything that, just feels too close to her heart. But I'm super proud of her, and it really is proof that we can all change and that we can all choose, and we can decide that it ends with us. So here's to that. So that's what I have for you today. And I just want to offer that it is possible. And let yourself really go there with your vision. Let yourself decide on purpose who you want to be, because a vision is just like a belief. You get to make it up. There's no such thing as impossible when it comes to a vision. So I'm very, very excited for you to be on this journey, and I'm sending you so much love. I'm so excited for you, and I hope to connect with you soon. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope this episode is something that you'll be able to add to your manifestation toolbox to come back to when you need a little extra motivation. If you like what you've heard today and want to take it deeper, you've got to come check out my signature coaching program, the Money Manifestation Movement. It's the place where you'll not only learn manifestation, but you'll begin to live it alongside me and an amazing community of like-minded entrepreneurs doing this work together. Head on over to jamieberman.com to learn more.